us to really reevaluate what we've done, but how we're going to take it from this moment and move forward in life. So bear with me if you don't mind. I'm going to warn you now. I might make you all a little sad. I got a heavy story. I might make you cry a little bit. I might make you laugh a little bit too. So I want you guys to go with me on this journey as I share with you a little bit about myself, my story, and how you can take this first steps in finding and building resilience within your life. Is it okay if I do that? All right, good deal. So one of the most important things about trying to overcome challenges and adversity in your life is, by show of hands, who uses positive affirmations? Says good things about yourself to get going every day or something of that nature. You know, we say things like, I am strong, I am powerful, I am smart. There is a quote by a gentleman called John, and it goes like this: I am not what has happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And so when we start to think about the things that happen to us in our life, I want us to think about the power of choosing to have life that you want and to create a story and move forward in a way that is most effective for yourself. Now, I want to take you guys back. Go back 5 years ago. 5 years ago. First off, I want to say that there are things in life that happen to us that we least expect, that we can't predict, that we don't see coming our way. And, you know, life is full of curveballs. And part of it is how you're going to react when something hits you that you didn't expect coming. As I go back 5 years ago, I want to give you guys a little timeline of what happened to me in my story, in my life. And ask yourself, how would I react in that situation? See if I can get this right. So I want to take you guys back before I even go to that. June 27, 2018. I woke up that day. And I woke up with the intent of being able to take my 12-year-old son, Cameron, and drive him from Atlanta to Nashville, Tennessee, because he was going to get ready to stay with his uncle for a week. That was the plan. The reason why he was going to stay with them for a week, my wife at the time, Malika, and I, we were getting ready to celebrate a momentous occasion. We were getting ready to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary. And we had already thought about what we were going to do. We had planned for months that we were going to take a 5-day trip to the Bahamas and have a wonderful, phenomenal time together during that period. Now, leading up to this time, Malika, she had just gotten promoted as a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion with the Fortune 500 company. So she had been working a lot, been doing a lot of different things, traveling back and forth from Atlanta to Chicago and Atlanta to other places for different events, different conferences. And when she would be home, I would have to schedule myself to go on trips. I was working as an engineering manager for a small company. So we both had busy lives. We had a lot going on. And I say this to say that we were really looking forward to this vacation as a time to reconnect, as a moment to be able to, figure out, one, be proud and celebrate what we've done in our lives, and, be grateful for the fact that we were reaching this milestone event of being 15 years together. And also to be able to figure out the next steps in our life together and how we're going to move forward and really bond. So on that day before we were going out of town, I dropped my son off at home, and he was excited. I'm sorry, not at home, but at his aunt and uncle's house. And he was excited because he was going to get to do some things that he doesn't get to do at home. You know how kids are and everything, when they act one way when they're with you and their parents, but then when they get with somebody else, they know they're going to get spoiled. So he knew he was going to get to eat ice cream late at night. He was going to get to abuse and play with their dog and do all kinds of different things. That they were going to let him just run the house. So I told him, son, Cameron, don't worry. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Enjoy the break from me and your mom. I'll be back here in 1 week to pick you back up. And he was like, Dad, go have a good time. You and mom need to do this. And I know he was already thinking of all the mischievous things he was going to do while he's with his cousins and uncle and all. So, but I left him there and I told him, son, don't worry, you have a good time. I'll be back to pick you up in a week, and then we'll go on and do something else for the rest of the summer. So I dropped him off, got back in the car, headed back to Woodstock, and finished packing and preparing, and Malika, we got ready because we were going to leave the next day to go to paradise, to go and have us a great time in the Bahamas. And I'd never been before. She had never been to the Bahamas before, but you know, one of the things that we were doing was that she had some friends that she had went on a girls' trip the year before. And they went to Mexico, and somehow in the midst of doing this, they got to go swim with dolphins, which is something that, you know, some people like to do. I understand doing the thing with the animals, and that was a great experience. She had the pictures of that. And as we were getting ready to go on this trip, she said, "Tyran, I really want to go swimming with the pigs." And I'm like, "Swimming with the pigs?" But apparently, in the Bahamas, this is something that they do. They have these wild feral pigs that you can go out and swim with and get pictures with and hopefully not get a desire for bacon or sausage or anything else. But I was like, okay, babe, whatever you want to do, let's do it. We're going to make that happen. So as we're starting to plan our trip and all the things that we were going to do, that this was going to definitely be something that we were going to fit into this trip somehow, some way. So anyway, we get on the plane, we fly to the Bahamas. First 2 days were exceptional. We had a great time. Time at the beach, time at the pool. We had some fruity drinks, some delicious meals. And you know, we were really getting into, you know, what we were going to be able to enjoy this moment of having this vacation and this time together. On the third day, we thought to ourselves, okay, this might be the day. This is the day that we're actually going to get adventurous. We're going to leave the resort. We're going to go ahead and book this excursion where we're going to go out there and we're going to tour the island, see some iguanas, find these pigs, spend some time in the water, do whatever, but you know, get away and make this adventure be even better. So the day before we booked this trip, and there were two options. We could either do an 8-hour tour where you get to, I guess, swim with more pigs and find more, you know, things out there to keep you occupied, but it was going to be a lot of activities that were associated with it. Or you could do the 4-hour trip where you only get a little time with the pigs and you get a couple of drinks and still was going to be a good time. After thinking about it and looking at how much time we had, I said, Malika, how about we just do the half-day trip? Because in my mind, they had a really nice golf course at this resort. And I was thinking, okay, we could go do the trip in the morning and then get back and I can go play later that afternoon. She was like, okay, that's a compromise. So for those of you who are married, you know, you got to come with a compromise somewhere where everybody's happy. So I thought we'd be able to go ahead and do that, be able to go on the tour and be able to go back to the resort so I could play golf later that afternoon. So we picked the 4-hour tour. So on that third day, we wake up. We're excited. We wake up 6:30 in the morning. We're already up and moving because we know we have to get on this tour at 9 o'clock. 6:30, we're up. We're going to breakfast. We're at breakfast. I eat an omelet. I think it's one of the best omelets I ever had in my life. She eats potatoes and fruit and just is ready to go. 7:30, we're leaving from breakfast and we're headed to the entrance of the resort where there was going to be a bus that was going to come pick us up and take us to this marina. As we're standing there, we're seeing other couples come up. They're gradually coming up. We're talking, we're socializing with them, learning about where they're from and how long they've been married and what all they've had the opportunity to do. And then, you know, 7:45, we're all getting ready for this bus to arrive. 7:55, we're still waiting on this bus to arrive. 8:05, we're still waiting for the bus to arrive, but we're still having a good time. We're in paradise. All is great. 8:15, the bus comes and picks us up, and the bus goes from our resort to another resort to another resort before we get to the marina where we're going to go on this exceptional tour. And so we get to the marina at 8:45. Now there's a line of probably about 60 people there that are doing one of these two tours, either the half-day tour or the full-day tour. And so we happen to be in the minority because there were only 10 of us who were going on this half-day tour, while there were the other 50 or so who were going on this full-day tour. But as we were walking down the pier, you could see on the right side the boat for the full day, on the left side the boat for the half day. The one for the full day had a lot of people. It was much bigger, so they were used to getting people coming out there the whole day. But the one that we were on was still, you know, fairly small, but it was plenty of space on there So we make our way onto the boat. 8:58, the captain comes on and he says to everybody, get excited, get ready, we're gonna have us a wonderful experience today. And he starts telling us about how, we're gonna find these iguanas out here and we're gonna find these pigs and we're gonna be able to, have such a wonderful experience on this trip that we're gonna be mad that we didn't get on the full day trip. Now he did say, once we come back, we can get on the next boat for the afternoon if we really wanted to. So at 9 o'clock, we take off. And everything seems fine. And I can remember I was sitting on a bench with my arm over Malika, looking out and thinking to myself, this is amazing. I'm with the woman that I love, enjoying myself, having the time of my life. The weather's perfect, I'm at peace, all is well. And then 9:08, I woke up. Again. Except, this time I wake up, face down on the burning boat.
The boat was on a wildlife excursion when it burst into flames.
No, literally the boat exploded right in front of us.
Killing 39-year-old Malika Graham.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this to where you guys can see.
The boat was on a wildlife excursion when it burst into flames.
Literally the boat exploded right in front of us.
Killing 39-year-old Malika Grimes Jackson from Chattanooga as she celebrated her 15th wedding anniversary. Her husband Tyran seriously injured.
They were a partnership that fond loving, that she valued family very highly.
9 other Americans were injured, including 22-year-old Stephanie Shea.
I'll stop it there. But I found myself waking up face down on the surface of that burning boat. As you can see, there was a second boat where there were passengers on it who they were able to, one, to record that footage right there. But two, when I started waking up from being knocked unconscious, they were yelling at me, get off the boat, get off the boat, get off the boat. Now, what woke me up was, let me ask you guys this. How many of you men, and I know women, you like to grill, barbecue, cook out, do things of that nature, show of hands? Okay, most everybody. You know how when you got the charcoals over the grill and you got it really hot, you might put your hand over it to get a feel to sort of gauge if it's ready to cook on or not? Well, literally, that's how my right thigh was. My right thigh was burning from the flames of that boat. I ended up having a broken right foot, 3rd-degree burns on my right leg, fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs, broken collarbone. And I was in and out of consciousness 5 times between the time the boat exploded until I got some medical treatment. I wake up on the surface of that boat on my stomach and glance my head over and I see a lot of blood. And I didn't realize it. Well, I realized it after I looked at it. But I saw my ankle bone protruded out. And my foot just dangled. And I'm thinking to myself, God, what happened? The only thing I could do at that moment, because I tried to, people from the second boat, they were in close enough distance where I could see them, I could hear them, and they're yelling at me, get off the boat, get off the boat, get off the boat. I literally tried to push myself up. But as I mentioned, my collarbone was broken in 4 places. I couldn't do that. I crumbled. Tried to push myself up again, and I crumbled again. I could only reach my right hand out and put my fingertips in the ridges of that surface of the boat, just to drag myself a couple feet away from those flames. Drag myself a couple feet away from those flames until I pass out. Now, at this point in time, some of the people from that second boat, they decided, they risked their lives. They came over and they pulled me off the edge of the boat. And you might have saw a little bit of that in the video, and got me to safety on their boat. And just to give you guys an idea, what happened was, there was a field leak that emanated from the field tank. And Malika and I were sitting right above where that leak occurred. Just a random accident, wrong place, wrong time. And as you saw, as a result of that, well, I won't even get that yet. I was put on the second boat, and my first question is, I was talking to some of these same couples, these same people who we were on the bus with, and that we were talking with when we get ready to leave the resort, was, where's my wife? Where's Malika? How is she? She was thrown in a different direction. And there happened to be a fisherman that was out there at the same time, and they picked her up, took her to shore, and she was going to this clinic. They told me that there wasn't an ambulance for me, that I was going to have to wait once they got me back to shore. So I'm waiting, and all I can think about is, I hope my wife is okay. Eventually, there was a civilian who just happened to be driving by with a pickup truck. So they put me on a piece of plywood on the back of a pickup truck, riding down this bumpy road in the middle of the Bahamas to go to this clinic. And I tell you, I could feel every bump along the way. I didn't know everything that was wrong with me at the time, but that hurt like hell. And I was like, okay, this is going to be rough. But finally, they get me to this clinic. And at this clinic, it's a Saturday morning, they have one doctor there. There are 3 of us who are hardly injured. My wife, Malika, one other young lady, and myself. And when they get me out, they put me on a stretcher, and they wheel me into this clinic. And as I'm being wheeled in, I can hear Malika, her moans, her suffering. She's in agony. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't do anything about it. I'm broken. I'm hurt. I don't know what's happened yet, really. I'm still in shock. But I'm having to suffer knowing that I hear her suffering. They wheel me into a bed, and eventually, as I'm trying to make myself as still and quiet as possible so I can hear her and try to understand how Malika's doing, the doctor comes up to me. And my first question is, how's Malika? How's my wife? He tells me, we're about to wrap up what's left of your foot, and we're sending you and this one other passenger to the good hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you guys can't treat me here, but if you're sending me and somebody else to the good hospital, what about my wife? He tells me she's going to come later. So now I'm starting to rationalize this as if she must not be injured as badly as I am, if they're going to send her later. So I'm feeling a little bit hopeful, but I don't get the opportunity to see her. I don't get the opportunity to talk to her. They put me on an ambulance, they take me to the airport, put me on an air ambulance, fly me to Nassau, get me to the good hospital. I get to the good hospital, I go in the emergency room, they start taking my vitals, preparing me for surgery, say you have to go in emergency surgery. My question is, how is my wife? Is she on her way here yet? They don't answer. So more time is passing, they prepare me to go into surgery, I go into surgery, I come out of surgery, I wake up, I see my left foot and what's left of it wrapped up and in a cast. And now about 5 or 6 hours have passed by. And I'm thinking to myself, surely Malika would be here by now. Where is my wife? I wake up and I see 2 doctors come in the room. And I ask them, where is Malika? Where is my wife? The 2 doctors look at each other, confused. And they walk out. And I'm thinking to myself, that is the most obvious question I could be asking. I'm worried, I'm concerned about my wife. She should have been here by now. And then after about 3 minutes, they come back in. And they tell me, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you that your wife didn't make it. Now here, I'm an eternal optimist, and I'm thinking to myself, she didn't make it, she didn't make it. That must mean that the airplane that flew us from Exuma to Nassau must have needed to get some fuel along the way, and there was a delay from that perspective, and that she's still on her way. Because they told me she was going to be on her way there, that she was coming later. And I said, no. She died at that clinic. They didn't want to tell you, and we didn't want to tell you before they put you on the plane to fly you here. So here I am, Supposed to be having the time of my life with the woman that I love most. And just like that, my life changed in an instant. Now, I cried myself to sleep that night because I was still in shock. I couldn't believe the fact that she was no longer here. It seemed surreal. And I was fighting it. Now, I did wake up that next morning and had to do something that was going to be equally as painful after understanding the fact that Malika was no longer here. That 12-year-old boy that I dropped off with his aunt and uncle, I was going to have to pick up the phone and call him and tell him, son, Mommy and Daddy got in an accident and Mommy's never coming home. To hear his voice on the other end, where he couldn't really process it, but based on what I told him, he knew it had to be real, that it had to be serious. And he told me, Dad, are you going to be okay? And I told him, son, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to bounce back from this, knowing that I'm lying my ass off. I might not be able to get through this because I am really struggling and having a hard time. Physically, I'm broken. Emotionally, I'm broken. I don't know what's going to happen. And later that afternoon, as I'm laying there in that hospital bed, remember I told you this left foot was dangling and it was blood gushing and all. Well, my foot had gotten infected. And when they tried to reattach what was left of my foot, it caused infection to start going through my body. And as I'm laying there, instead of treating the infection, I was just being given pain medication. And what was happening was my body was starting to break down. So as I'm laying there in that hospital bed, I see the EKG monitor over my head, and I'm looking at it. And I'm seeing my blood pressure getting higher, my heart rate increasing as I'm just laying there. And I notice all of my vital signs go from green to yellow to red. And I'm starting to come to grips with the fact that my wife has already died. I've already broken my son's heart by telling him that she's not coming back. And now I'm about to die as well. And that puts you in a true state of despair when you are having to come to grips with you're seeing yourself die right at that moment. And as I was praying to God and I was trying to understand, what did we do to deserve this? What happened to cause us to have to experience this? I was mad, I was angry, I was frustrated, but I also knew that the next time I closed my eyes was probably going to be the last time I closed my eyes. Now, I went to sleep that night not expecting to wake up the next day. But with the grace of God, I woke up the next day. There were a lot of things that were happening in the background. One of the things that was occurring was that there was a level 1 trauma unit in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that saw what happened. They said, we need to get him here because we think we can save his life. And even though there were some complications getting me out of the Bahamas, because somehow my passport had gotten misplaced or something, they were able to get me out of there. And as soon as I got to Florida, my family that was in Nashville, they had flown down, and the doctors had told my family that we're going to do whatever we can to save his life. And 2 hours after arriving at the hospital, I found myself in surgery again, and I wake up, and my left leg is gone. 2 days later, I go through 5 surgeries in one day to start putting together all those other pieces of me that were broken. And I realized that it seems like I'm still going to be here. And at that moment, the next day, and you know, we all have a spiritual being, higher power that we may listen to, believe in, and I was, you know, sometimes we get these messages that are quiet that we think we understand, and sometimes we get them where they're as clear as day, where they truly resonate. And I got this message from God, and he was telling me that, Tyran, if I wanted to, I could have taken your life when that boat exploded. I could have taken your life when your vitals went from green and yellow to red in that hospital. I could have taken your life when you went through those 4 surgeries and then 5 surgeries in that one day, and your body was still all over the place. But I'm keeping you here for a reason. Malika had did what she needed to do in her life, and it was time for her to come home. But you still got a purpose. And if you still want to do everything you need to in this world, you need to understand, you need to be resilient. That was the message that would resonate. Be resilient. The message also said that the obstacles that you've overcome just to get to this point are nothing compared to the obstacles that you're going to have to face to rebound from this point. And so I've got this quote I use all the time when I try to tell people about what it means to be resilient, because it told me that I was going to have to make this choice. I was going to choose to be resilient if I not only wanted to survive, but to thrive. And my definition of resilience that I like to use is that resilience is not about regaining what was lost, but it's about reshaping what still remains. And it's how you react to that adversity that determines what you do with what we still have remaining in the life and the days and the time that we have here. So, even though I didn't know what that meant at that point in time, that was the start of me having to make the choice to be resilient and to bounce back and move forward with life. So, July 5th, 2018 was the day that I was reborn. And my platform is called Reborn Resilient because that was the day that transformation started to happen with me and the way that I look forward to lots of things. So, moving on now, I know that's been very heavy, but the beauty in something of this nature is the recovery. And what I want to share with you guys is I had every reason to fail. I had every reason to quit. I had every reason to give up. But in the midst of going through everything that I went through to go from being in this tragic state to being able to try to regain control of life again, there was a journey. On this journey that I had to take, I created a roadmap. And this roadmap to resilience can be applied to so many different areas, so many things of our life. When we have challenges, when we have obstacles, when we have setbacks, when we have things that take us from what we think is normal and move us to where we need to be, what our new normal is going to become. Because this was clearly my situation. I was going to have to find out what this new normal looks like. So if you bear with me, I'm going to give you guys some of the steps of what this roadmap looks like in areas that you can apply this to your life. And a little bit of my journey and how it just helped me find the resilience, choose the resilience, and apply the resilience to move forward to where I can actually thrive in life following. So this acronym roadmap, I'm going to give you something to take away with every one of these points. The first step in this roadmap to resilience is about restoration. And when I talk about restoration, restoration has to do with the renewal, with being able to recover. And one of my quotes that I like to use is resilience is knowing when to rest in order to start healing. And so, as I was going through this state where I was in the hospital for 2 weeks after the accident, and I was getting ready to get discharged, I was still broken. I was still in cast. I was still in a wheelchair. I was still in back brace, all of these things. What was going to be the next move for me? Now, I was under the hope or impression or belief that I was going to go to a rehab facility where I had family, where I had some means of being able to get some top-notch treatment as I was going to recover from everything that occurred. While I was in Florida, I was thinking, okay, a large part of my family was in Nashville, so I was thinking Vanderbilt, their rehab facility would help me recover from what I went through. And Broward and Fort Lauderdale tried to contact them and tell them what was happening, give them my records. And they said no. Okay. I grew up originally in Alabama, and I know UAB had a phenomenal rehab facility, so we tried to contact them, see if they would accept it. Same conversation happened, and they said no. So here I am, I've been rejected. by people who I thought would help me get back together. But in the midst of talking with nurses and people from the hospital, they said the best thing for you is to just go somewhere and rest and sit for about 6 to 8 weeks. Because the reason why I was rejected, these rehab facilities said that unless you had 2 functional limbs, we can't do anything for you. So that was hard for me to grasp and understand, but I knew when I looked down at my left leg, there wasn't anything there. My right foot is in a cast. I got a sling on my shoulder, so it's okay. Maybe I have to do what they're saying and rest. And so what ended up happening was I was flown from Florida to Nashville, Tennessee, and I was literally placed in the guest room of my sister's house, where I had to basically sit there for 6 weeks. Now, I say that this was the first step of restoration for me because sometimes when we have setbacks in our life, we still try to push and move through them. Now, in this situation, I had a forced pause. And even though I didn't want to, I was thinking that the plan was to be active and start doing things, or at least start the recovery process. But no, it was meant for me to lay in that bed and to start processing what truly happened. And to let the first steps of my healing process move forward before I was going to be able to have any action, any activity, any movement to try to heal physically from what happened to me. And I just want to say that, even though I didn't want to do that, I understood after some time that this was going to be the best step in me being able to bounce back from what I'd gone through physically. And if I wanted to get functional, I had to come to grips with the fact that, at this point in time, I had to be literally pushed in a wheelchair from a bed to a recliner to sit and watch TV and read books for 10 hours, only to be wheeled back to that bed. And as a young man who was used to moving, used to doing everything, getting up when you want to get up, go do what you need to do when you need to, mentally, that became hard. But I had to understand that this was happening for a reason. I got to understand that I've got to process some things. I've got to read. I've got to start to understand certain elements of what I needed to gain during this phase of restoration. During that first phase, it got me closer to the Word. And one of the scriptures that stands out to me when I like to talk about this is Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future." And I had gone from being hopeless, but I had to keep that in mind as I was thinking about how I was going to move forward, and that even though bad things happened here, it wasn't meant for me to stay in a bad place. So this was a result of me having that moment to take that pause. So if you have a challenge in your life or something that just throws you off, don't forget the fact that sometimes you might need to heal. And the first step in that healing process is going to go with the pause that allows you to start being restored. So keep that in mind. That's the first step on this roadmap, is to acknowledge that restoration. All right, the next letter in this roadmap is an obsession. And when I say an obsession, that means having a laser-like focus, being very clear on what is important to you and what the priority is, what you need to do next in your life to overcome that challenge. After a couple of weeks after being at my sister's house, I was actually having physical therapists come to the house to actually start working with me when I could start moving. Now, I know this seems boring, but I had a physical therapist who would give me a 2-pound weight and just have me do like this, so I could start strengthening my rotator cuff from where my collarbone that was broken. I had a titanium plate, or have a titanium plate with 7 screws in here. So it had to be fragile. But I was thinking to myself, and I could barely do this, but it was like, this has to be the most important thing in my life right now. When you're obsessed with something, you understand that it's a goal, and it's a goal that you are relentless towards, that you have to treat as something that you're going to keep doing, that you're going to do despite how it feels. After doing this, it doesn't seem like much, but it hurt like hell. And I was sore. And I knew that I had to keep doing that because this was the first step in me recovering physically. And really, what my goal was that 12-year-old boy that I had to be there for. That I wanted to be able to be functional, be able to move, be able to get back on my feet so I could be there for him. And so when I thought about, emotionally, I'm still a mess. But at that point in time, physically, I had to start to recover. I had to focus on that physical therapy, on it as if it was the most critical aspect of my life at that point in time. If you have something that's knocking you down and you're trying to figure out how you're going to strategize, how you're going to bounce back from it, ask yourself, what is my obsession? What am I obsessed to do? What am I going to do that's going to keep me from, or what am I going to do that's going to keep me moving forward? That I'm going to stay focused on, and I'm going to do despite whatever obstacle gets in the way. When you have that obsession, then it will keep you pushing forward even when you don't feel like it. Let me see if this can play. I'm going to touch on this a little bit later. This is just when I was getting further along with my physical therapy journey and learning after walking again. And you might not think much of it, but when you got a prosthetic leg and you're trying to figure out, learn how to walk again, it can be a challenge. So just one step, because I was obsessed to getting back on my feet, being able to do the things that I needed to do. So next, going down this roadmap, and I don't want to take up too much time. The A for this roadmap is acceptance. And what is acceptance? When I talk about acceptance, it really centers on being able to come to grips and come to terms with the reality of what's happened in the past has happened. You can't do anything more about that. My first battle with truly getting to the acceptance was 3 weeks after the accident. Now, there was some struggles, some challenges with getting Malika's body back from the Bahamas. And that's when we finally were able to lay her to rest. And as I mentioned before, leading up to our vacation, both Malika and I had a lot going on. She was traveling 1 week, she'd come back, I would travel the next week, and so on and so forth. So for Cam and I, it was almost as if Mom was just gone on a work trip. And that's the way it was processed. And sometimes what I want to say about this, the enemy of acceptance is denial. And we were in a state of denial to some extent that she was truly gone. And when you're trying to process this for a 12-year-old boy this is the only woman he's truly loved in his life, trying to get past that is a difficult thing. But when we got to the point of going through that ceremony, for me, it served as a good closure. Because even though I already know she was gone, seeing that definitely pushed it forward as far as grieving through the pain of what happened, reliving it, being aware of what was going on. It really allowed me to take a step forward, even though I was still suffering. But for my son, I wanted him to get to a place where at least he understood that, look, the normal that we knew before is truly gone, and we're going to have to be able to move forward. And when you are stuck in situations in life, you may find yourself being too wrapped up in denial and not really getting to that place of acceptance. It's easier said than done. There were other things along the way, emotionally and mentally, that helped me get to that place of acceptance. But that was the first step in being able to move forward and realize that I still had a life left. I still had something here that I had to do, but I had to relinquish what had happened in the past if I wanted to move forward. The next point on my roadmap to resilience is discipline. And when we talk about discipline, there are times where we just have to suck it up and do the work. We have to do the work that we need to, even when we don't feel like it, even when we don't want to. Now, what you see right here, this is when I was taking some of my first steps with the prosthetic. And as far as being disciplined, so to give you guys a little bit more of the timeline, after about 6 weeks I was allowed to leave Nashville, Tennessee. At that point in time, I was able to move on crutches, and because my right foot had healed, my left shoulder had healed, and I had come back home, and I was starting the process to be able to get fitted for a prosthetic. When I went through my surgeries with the doctors in Florida, they said, okay, you're messed up pretty bad. If you're good, you're going to be able to walk in maybe 6 to 8 months. It won't look like a normal person, but at least at that point in time, you'll be able to move again. But keeping that obsession, that focus, and being disciplined about physical therapy, about getting myself together was important. And after 3.5 months, I was able to walk. So I thought that was tremendous. And then, after getting to a place where I was still not just doing the physical therapy, but I was doing my own regular workouts, trying to get into habits and routines where I was going to do the things to build myself up and get stronger. In the midst of all of this, I had lost about 27 pounds between the time we went on that vacation and about a month afterwards. Depression kicked in, being on meds kept me from wanting to eat, and just the overall sadness. And I'm not a big guy, so that's a lot of weight to lose out, but really I was weak. And so to be able to start to develop that strength again physically was something that I needed to do, but it required the discipline to do what was necessary in order to make that happen. Also along these lines, and I haven't touched on this yet, but I had to be disciplined about what I was going to do emotionally and mentally. Now, I had never done therapy before, but once I got to a place where I was able to come back home to Atlanta, I talked to my primary care physician. And I said, Doc, I need to talk to somebody because I'm dealing with so much grief. I'm dealing with so much pain, and I don't know how to handle this. And he gave me 3 people to seek out to talk to who specialize in helping to walk through that pain and grief. And with this being sudden, traumatic loss, that my grief was going to be severe. And so one of the most important things I could have done was get myself and my son into counseling as soon as I possibly could in order to start talking about it, expressing what was going on. But where this comes back to discipline is we have to be mindful that the work, it's easy to talk about being disciplined, about going to the gym, working out, that type of thing. But I had to go through the discipline of opening up emotionally, of being able to share, being able to grow, being able to, one of the most important aspects of my mental health journey was to actually start journaling and getting the thoughts that were out in my head, out on paper. And to not just do it once or twice, but to realize I was having great memories and flashbacks of Malika and some of the wonderful times that we had. To put that out there, to be able to share that, because when I did that, it made it easier for me to talk about it when I went to counseling. It made it easier. I had Cam, my son, writing out his thoughts. And all of this, it allowed us to be able to heal even more so. Being disciplined with it allowed us to accelerate that healing process. So when you have setbacks and challenges, ask yourself, what are you disciplined on? What are you going to be able to say is a habit, and what are you going to commit to yourself? Because that's what it comes down to. What is your level of commitment to a certain task that's going to make you better? As we continue down this roadmap, we got a couple of more stops to make on this roadmap, and I'm going to try, this is what, like I said, where I was taking my first steps and being able to show that I could actually move again. I was so proud of myself because you don't know what it's like going 3.5 months where you don't really take a step. Your muscles, your tendons get so tight. I've been either sitting in a wheelchair or laying flat. So that first step that I took, it was awesome. But it got better over time. Next point on this roadmap to resilience, motivation. What is motivation? What's going to get you out of bed? What's going to get you going every day to do the things you need to do? When I think about the motivation, because there were times I just wanted to throw in the towel. I didn't want to get up and I didn't want to push. I was feeling the depression. I was suffering from anxiety. If you remember, I'm the one who booked that trip and said we're going to go on this 4-hour tour. I was dealing with survivor's remorse and then the PTSD of waking up on that board. I had a lot of different things that was battling me as I tried to go to sleep and process that I'm responsible for why this happened. But when I talk about motivation, I think back to a conversation that Malika and I had. It was about a year or so before we went on this trip. We were sitting in our basement watching a movie. And in this movie, somebody died suddenly. And after we finished watching the movie, it led to one of these what-if conversations. What if this happens to me? What if I was to suddenly die? Now, as crazy as that seems, it was a blessing that happened when it did. Malika looked at me and she said, Tyran, if something happens to me, I wouldn't want you to mourn too long. I want you to go back out there and find happiness again. Then she said, she gave me this list. And on this list were the names of 7 women. And she said, under no circumstances whatsoever, but I lived in my house around our son. Those are my real friends. But the most important thing that she told me was, I want you to do everything you can to make sure that the only part of me that will still be left here on this earth is well taken care of. And that was our son, Cameron. So when I started thinking about those times where I was in the bed, my body was aching, I was hurting, I didn't want to go to therapy, to counseling. I didn't want to start trying to figure out how I'm going to put my life back together. I reflected back on that conversation. And that got me motivated and up to move and do what I needed to do in order to try to get my life back together and be there for that son of ours. So when you find yourself struggling with pushing forward, with getting up and doing the things you don't want to, going back to what we said with the obsession, that's key. But having that motivation to get you going is so critical, it's so important in order to strive and overcome the challenges when you need to build that resilience within yourself. Now, that was a couple of years ago, but that's the young man as he was, starting to come to grips, and we were starting to adjust to life after my wife. As we continue to move down this road now, and I hope I'm not boring you guys too much, but you're understanding that these are things that you can look at, reflect, and apply to your life when you're dealing with these challenges. One of the most important things is to have a positive attitude. And what is your attitude? Your attitude are the thoughts, the feelings, the way that you look at yourself in certain situations and circumstances. I had every right to look at what happened to me as being a tragic, traumatic, horrible thing, which it was. However, I tried to keep that mindset of not letting it get me down. And that was part of me going through my journey through my mental health challenges. One of the things that I learned through going through this process was I had to learn how to be vulnerable in ways. I was a very introverted person. I didn't really share too much with others. And in going through this process, I had to learn who Tyran truly was. You know, when we have that situation where we're married and we're with somebody for so long, we start to do the things that we like to do. And when that we turns into me, you have to find yourself. You have to figure out what it is you like to do. I lost my wife, the mother of my child, my rock, my best friend, my emotional support, all at once. And after 15 years, I had to rediscover who I was and how I was going to move forward, how I was going to operate in the world, and what really drove me, where my ambition came from. And so, in going through that, this was part of me realizing that, yeah, I know I got a bigger purpose, a bigger calling in the world. I just didn't know what it was going to be. It was revealed to me that I was going to do something. I wasn't going to go back to being an engineer, but I was going to go out and I was going to do something because I still need to make an impact on people in this world. And having that level of self-belief and that self-confidence to go out and do these things was so critical for me to be able to move forward. But I had to believe that. I struggled with confidence. I struggled with my self-esteem. I said to myself, who's going to like this guy that's missing half a leg? It was one of these things that it was in my head, but in going through and actually putting effort in trying to speak positive of myself and believe in my abilities and believe in what was my God-given talent and what he wanted me to do, made my attitude more positive as I move forward. So when we start to think about the challenges that we do have, or when we run into obstacles, I want you to take the time to take a look at yourself and encourage yourself and look at what's positive within yourself, because that's going to make your attitude move in the right direction, and you're going to be able to overcome more of the obstacles than not due to the way you look at yourself. And then, this was a picture of me. Look, to be in as bad of a state that I was in, I still had a smile on my face. And that was a reflection of having the attitude that even though I'm in a difficult state, difficult situation, that there is so much more to come. And so I want everybody to be mindful. That is the one thing that we can control. We can control our attitude. We can control our effort that we put in trying to move forward. And so don't let anybody stop you from having that positive attitude. Oh, and with that positive attitude, I didn't say this, but it took me 3.5 months to walk again after being told it would be 8 months. A couple months after that, my walk turned into a jog, my jog turned into a run. I had people who were supporting me. So critical to have the right energy, the right support. That were saying, hey, you need to go start running 5Ks. I said, well, I've never run a 5K in my life. Well, I ran 5Ks. I started doing things. I learned how to swim with one leg. Now, it's hard. Now, I tell you, when I take this leg off and I start swimming, it's real easy to just start going. You take for granted how easy it is to go straight when you're symmetrical. But when you're not. But no, all of these were things that increased my confidence, my self-belief, and allowed me to see that despite what challenges I was facing, it wasn't going to keep me from living up to my potential. So, attitude is critical on this roadmap. And then lastly, I want to talk about the process. The last P is process. Process. What is the process? I see the process is a specific set of actions that take you from where you are to where you want to be. There's a statement I like to use that everywhere you got in life, your mind got there first. That means you have to think about it. You have to visualize it. You have to see it. And then it's not just about seeing the goal or the destination, but it's about taking a look at, okay, what am I going to do to get there? There are actions within those milestones that we need to understand. If you have the right process, it'll help move you forward. When I started getting into this space, and I didn't think I'd be a speaker, but I was asked to speak at an insurance conference by a friend of mine about 8 months after the accident. I was still emotionally broken. I was hurt. I didn't know what I was doing. I got up there and I started crying because I wasn't ready, but I didn't know how to be able to articulate and give a message to that man. But I realized that if this is something I wanted to do, I had to learn how to be able to convey the story in a certain manner that's going to resonate with people. I have to learn how to hopefully teach lessons that people can apply in the midst of doing this. I had to get a coach who would help me learn how to do that. I went into entrepreneurship. That led me into learning how to do that with the right guys and the right help and moving along that way. So, and as I said before, I was an engineer. I was very structured before. So to me, process is just a flow chart with a bunch of different boxes where I can say, okay, we start here and we go there. So I was able to break it down in a way that worked for me. But this applies to our life too. If you want to do anything, you don't want to let life just happen to you and just wander aimlessly. You want to have some structure, some process you're going to take in order to get from where you started to where you really want to end up. And so, like I said, that led to me starting to speak in different places. And there was a book that I put together that I've written. It's a bestseller, Choosing Resilience, where I go through some of these things. And it's led for me to be able to do a number of different things in this space in order to help provide hope, inspiration, and encouragement to others. Because the challenges that we face today are going to lead to the successes that we're going to have tomorrow. So back to my initial quote, keep this in mind. Resilience is not about regaining what was lost, but it's truly about reshaping what still remains. No matter what challenge you face today, know that it's only for today. That there's so much more that you can do. And focus on what you're going to do with what you still have left. Rebuild what's remaining and being able to overcome that adversity and understand that it's your reaction to that adversity that's going to determine your life story. My name is Tyran Jackson. I'm a man who's been transformed, who's been changed. It took a defining moment, a sudden traumatic change in my life that caused me to be who I am and where I am today. But this can happen for anybody else. Know that life is not a given. We got to appreciate the moments, the times, the opportunities that we have. And if you would like to listen and learn from me more, I'm out there. You can find me, Tyran Jackson official. Because what I do is I help those who are going through traumas, tragedies, and transitions in life make the transformations that they need so they can be triumphant. I appreciate you all for allowing me to have this time to share. I hope I've touched, motivated, and inspired you all. And thank you again. I hope this kicks off and gives you a different perspective on how to move forward as we move forward through this conference and through the rest of your life. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Oh, let the record show he's a Georgia Tech engineer.
You could tell. Very organized.
We sharp people.
Yes, indeed.
Technical degree always helps.
Yep.
We don't have a break.